It, Chapter 2. Was it good? I'm your host, Ravi, joined by my two brothers, Christian and Arjuna, and we have a very special guest with us today, Natalie Lucia. How are you doing, Natalie?
I am great. Thank you guys for having me.
We're discussing what the hell happened, our favorite parts, our least favorite parts, theories, rants, and answering the age-old question, was it good?
Boom.
That was a good
Well
intro,
done.
right?
That was
good,
That was
right?
actually good. I think starting off, the little changes that you made there were good.
Thank you.
The
Yeah, well,
energy
thank you.
gradually grew.
Cool.
Yeah.
So I can
It
quit now.
sucked.
I'm done, right?
That was your worst opening.
Hold on, real quick, Arjuna. What does this remind you of? Hello.
It reminds me of Winnie the Pooh.
That wasn't rehearsed or staged at all.
Hello, my name is Georgie.
I bring that up because actually before we jumped into this, I was watching a bunch of YouTube videos like I usually do, and there was this fun video from Looper where they were doing like a fake pitch meeting for it,
Oh my god.
and they were like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna make Pennywise also sound like Winnie the Pooh." How so? When Winnie the Pooh goes, "Hello." So now that's stuck in my head, and it's like, yeah, Pennywise, the psychotic clown, does sound like
A psychotic bear.
psychotic bear.
This is breaking news right now. Warner Brothers just announced It Chapter 3, and it's called It Chapter 3, The Return of Winnie the Pooh.
I thought you were actually speaking.
You know
truthfully.
how they
I
did
was
like
too.
I was
I was
you know
like,
how
how
they did
can
like
they?
Freddy versus
Yeah.
Krueger? It could be
Yeah.
like Pennywise versus
Winnie
or versus Pooh, right?
Yeah,
Or versus Predator at this point. I mean,
some good stuff. That's some good stuff. So, Natalie, thank you for joining us. This is a bizarre podcast that the three of us do.
I can tell.
We just
lot of
like
fun.
to chit-chat because we love hearing my voice. The way we start these podcasts off, we like to kind of give a a one-word impression of what we thought of the movie. If you'd like, you are the guest. You can go first. If not, I can have one of these two go,
Or you could go.
or I could go.
How about you go?
Yeah.
Sure. If
I
I'm
think-
going to
Go
go
for
first, so my one-word impression that sums up It Chapter 2, Georgie.
Georgie.
Hey, Georgie.
Yeah,
And
his part of
the reason I picked Georgie is because the phrase, it's more of a phrase of "Hi Georgie" is a big thing that Pennywise did in the first movie, and that's the big takeaway that I took from the first movie. There's no phrase, unfortunately, in It Chapter 2 that made me go and want to say "Hey Georgie" again or some other phrase, right?
Sure.
So the first phrase from the first one overtook the second one, and that's why I picked Georgie.
Interesting.
A catchphrase.
You're
you
kind
could
of
say.
Catchphrase.
teasing
There it
how you
is.
feel as well.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yes,
Oh,
yes,
geez.
yes.
Oh.
I see that as well.
We can see what's coming. We can see what's coming.
Tease.
And just so everyone's aware, at the very end of this podcast, we will be going around and answering, once again, that question of was it good? Christian thinks he knows what I'm going to say, but he has no idea.
You know,
I do know what you're gonna
our
say.
show is built in with this, movie. It, right? Was it good?
Oh my god.
You know?
Wait, do we have to pay Warner Brothers for this? 'Cause we
Well,
should-
technically,
our
was
it-
it too good? So
It
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chapter 2.
It's not
yeah.
perfect.
Yeah. It's not.
So who would like to go next for their one-word impression?
I can go.
Okay, Baldy, go ahead.
My one-word impression is hilarious. I thought this movie was so funny. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like, and most of it intentionally, just because of the casting, Bill
Okay.
Hader and
Eddie, Jay Rascombe. What's
yes,
his,
yeah, Anthony.
No, I
don't
think it's
know.
Jay or
Jay?
Jason.
Yeah, the guy who played like the asthmatic.
He plays Eddie.
James
Yeah.
Ransom.
James Ransom. There you go. Sorry.
Those two right there, they were hilarious, and I think as well there were some unintentionally funny moments. Maybe they were supposed to be scary, like specifically when the old lady blows up into the
The naked, scary with the long boobs chick.
It was
Yeah.
hilarious. I was it was so funny, and just the movie and maybe that's not what the creators of the movie were going for, and I actually mean this in a great way. I had a great time watching this movie because it was hilarious. I wasn't scared. It was
But
just fun.
that's a good thing then.
Yeah.
right?
Oh, it's a great
Okay,
thing. It's
okay.
it's pleasant.
Positive.
It actually took my expectations, turned them upside down, and got a very different movie than I was expecting, and I enjoyed it more. I think.
Oh,
Okay.
very
Okay.
cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Natalie?
I'm gonna go with nostalgic.
Nostalgic. That's a good one. Why
Yeah.
nostalgic?
I am a huge fan of the book, and I also loved the 80s miniseries with Tim Curry. So I've always
right.
had that kind of like as my top level, and then this came in, and I was like, oh, it's so cute.
Whoa, interesting. What a cute attempt.
What a cute little movie. Down.
What a cute movie this was. I definitely want to get back to you, Natalie, in terms of like, obviously you've read the book, you watched the series from the 80s, you've seen the current movies. Anyone, I know personally, I watched a little bit of the series from the 80s. I didn't get all the way through, and I never read the book. Has anyone else, you two?
No, I mean, to be honest, I had never even heard of it until the first movie came out.
Wow.
Personally, like, I didn't know what it was.
Well, Arjuna, for our audience,
Sure.
I feel like there's a reason you don't know about this psychotic clown.
That's true.
Is it because perhaps you don't like scary movies, and the first time you saw this movie, I stuck a heart rate monitor to you and then had you watch the movie live on the internet?
It's true. Yeah, all the facts that you've just said are actually 100% true. Horror is my least favorite, by far, least favorite type of movie genre.
You're horrible.
And whatever. But I did
Totally.
it. I did it for the podcast. I did it for the audience. I did it for you guys out there. So you're welcome.
And real quick,
so I definitely I stay away from, and it's not even like horror that really gets me. It's more like the jumpy parts and the suspense, and you know that like that the shocks, you know, the frightening shocks that really get my heart rate going.
And quick shameless plug here. We are doing a bunch of experimental live stream stuff. You can find it on twitch.tv/wasitgood. You can see Arjuna connected to heart rate monitors and other weird pieces of technology to scare the crap out of him.
Are you one of those people that hates clowns, though?
No, I have no problem with
so
clowns.
it wasn't clowns.
No, and honestly, when I watched the first one, like watching the first one, I was like, yeah, I'm going to be fine watching the second one because it's not necessarily like a super jumpy type of movie, right? Like a jumpy movie that I saw with these 2 years ago was like Paranormal Activity 2. And I remember sitting in the theater for that and being like scared out of my mind because
I don't even remember that movie.
It's not that good of a movie.
Wait, is that the one where it takes place in the 90s or something?
No. It takes place a week before the first one, with the sister and her family.
That's
from the first one.
That would be a great live stream.
Paranormal Activity
with a heart rate monitor in him.
It was quite interesting. It was actually, real quick, it was fascinating to watch because he had never seen the movie and I had seen it, and I was watching the movie with him, not in the same room, but I would know when like the scary parts were coming, and he obviously didn't.
And the heart rate.
And the heart rate would just peak. It would just peak. And we had somebody else in the room watching it with him who had seen it, and they also had a heart rate, and you could see when they knew something was coming,
it was rising.
Theirs was rising, while Arjuna's was just all of a sudden like normal. Oh my god! And then back to like normal. It was quite interesting.
I will say though, it wasn't as dramatic as we were expecting. Like your heart never got like to 250 like I was hoping for. It's more like 100.
That's a good thing.
That is a good thing.
You're
I think
basically
that's a heart attack level.
You're
so
basically
you
just basically were like, I wish my brother had a heart attack. On
it would have been more dramatic.
He wanted to do it for the internet.
Would have gotten viral.
Yeah, I think so.
Anyway, Arjuna, what is your one-word impression of It Chapter 2?
Kind of piggybacking off of both of you, actually. So you said there was nothing memorable about it, and you said it was funny. So I'm going to go with zany, because that is the most memorable part for me, the zany parts. And so when I think of the zany parts, I think of when Richie has the, you know, this is spoiler alert territory for our audience out there, when he's been stabbed in the face and he goes out there and he's like, that mullet is from 30 years ago, right?
Oh my God.
Or the part where Bill Hader sees the dead eyes and he does the cross legs and like the eyes and everything. And I just like, that was the funniest part of the movie. And I don't necessarily think that was supposed to be super funny, but it was hilarious.
Yeah.
So when I think of this movie, right, and I close my eyes, I think of all those funny parts, and it's kind of a zany ride. It's not what you expect. It's not like, what was the horror movie that turned into like a big comedy, like Cabin in the Woods, like the weird one, Cabin in the Woods?
But Cabin in the Woods was never meant, like, Josh Whedon, who directed that, never intended it for it to be like a traditional horror.
But it was advertised as a horror.
It was
movie.
yeah, totally.
Yeah,
sure.
But that's just advertising,
Sure.
right? It was a dark comedy, if anything.
Right.
Right. It was playing off of the idea of like stereotypical comedy,
Right.
where they're supposed to do it because the demons are.
I would go as far as say it was so zany, I wouldn't even consider this necessarily a horror movie.
Wow. Would you say the first one though was a horror movie?
Yeah, I would.
But the second one,
I would say the second one is not.
Yeah.
So wait, are we going back to this is like way different than this, but Terminator 1 and Terminator 2. I don't everyone's aware of this.
Great.
But Terminator 1 was considered a horror film.
Yes.
It wasn't considered action adventure.
Right.
The sequel was considered action
Straight
adventure.
up action sci-fi.
So is that how
I wouldn't go. I
You
don't
look
think
at
it's.
it?
I don't think it's that extreme.
Okay.
But I could see some similarities in terms of. I don't know how you'd classify this movie because it's obviously not a straight up comedy. But I wouldn't say it's necessarily a horror movie either.
It also depends on your definition of such. So I got in
That's
a huge
true.
debate with a friend over Us, who was like, that is a horror movie. It's a horror movie. And I'm like, it's not. It's a suspense movie. Well, the director said it was a horror movie. I'm like, well, that's great. But I still see it as a suspense movie.
Jordan
you know,
Peele
so-
lied.
And the same thing actually happened with Jordan Peele's first movie,
With,
Get Out.
Oh, yeah.
Same thing. Nobody knew how to classify that. Like, a lot of people thought it was a comedy, and Jordan Peele was like, no.
Well, and that was the controversy. At the Golden Globes, it was
Right.
nominated as a
Comedy.
comedy.
and Jordan Peele was like,
But then
"Yeah,
again,
they
do
missed
we
it."
do we care what the Golden Globes do? Like, I mean,
No.
personally,
Yes.
I don't even care what the Academy does.
It's not part of the official EGOT. So
Though I'm sorry,
an
what?
EGOT,
What's
The
that?
different awards you can win: an Oscar, a Tony, a
Emmy, and a Grammy. If you win all four, you have the infamous EGOT.
Wait, who has an EGOT?
Does this?
Whoopi
Rita
Goldberg.
Moreno does for one.
Oh, wow.
Whoopi Goldberg
Does
has it.
do I have one yet?
No.
Oh, I've been
Elton,
nominated.
Elton John is just an Emmy away from an EGOT.
Oh, wow.
Good for
He's
him.
a GOT.
He's a god. He's a
He's a Game of Thrones. Does that mean in his last? Oh, that's dark.
Don't go there.
Don't do it, man.
He's old too, so I can't say that.
Aw.
He's like one of the last living musical legends.
What about Ringo Starr?
Hey, I love Ringo, but he was just the drummer of the Beatles, and he's more famous for being the voice
Voice
of
of Thomas the Tank Engine.
Yeah.
At this point.
Yeah.
yeah.
And the conductor or commissioner, whatever his name is.
The commissioner.
The
Well,
guy
he-
with the top hat.
He did all the voices.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. What was the conductor or
He's a conductor.
Yeah.
right? Yeah,
Yeah.
the
In
conductor.
England, he was called the Fat Controller.
Yeah.
Fat
I'm
Controller.
not
That's
making
right.
that up. In
He's
England,
correct.
it's called the
Aw.
Fat,
Fat Controller.
It's
Fat
ridiculous.
Controller.
Hey
They'll
man,
probably change
the
that now.
'90s were a different time.
Yeah.
So before we jump into our next section here, which we call What Happened, I actually kind of want to talk a little bit real quick about the comedy aspect. And that's kind of a simple question to everyone here. Bill Hader, right? Bill Hader is, first and foremost, we all know him for comedy,
Yeah.
right?
Saturday Night Live.
Saturday Night Live. You do not.
I've never seen him on Saturday Night Live.
Interesting. What was your first exposure to like Bill Hader?
This movie.
This movie.
Oh, wow.
Interesting.
Like, you've never seen Tropic
Interesting.
Thunder or?
Is he in Tropic
He's
Thunder?
in
Yeah,
Tropic
he's in
Thunder.
Tropic Thunder.
Who does he
He's like a
play?
PA.
He's like a PA. on
PA
the thing.
something.
Oh, so he's not one of
Not
the
a
main
big role.
characters.
No, because
Oh.
he was just emerging from his SNL career.
Yeah, I don't watch Saturday Night Live.
Right.
I'm usually in bed.
Yeah.
The reason I bring up Bill Hader is because Bill Hader, for me personally anyway, he is known to me as like a comedy actor. He did one of his more serious type roles was him playing this character known as Barry on HBO, where he plays a hitman. And it is supposed to be more dramatic, but it's turned definitely more into a dark comedy/comedy. And I guess my question for everyone here is, if you remove Bill Hader and they recast and they got a more dramatic or serious actor, does that take away the comedy elements, you think, and make this movie more serious? Basically, what I'm asking is,
Are you blaming Bill Hader?
yeah,
Yeah.
is it Bill Hader's fault that this movie comes across as comedy?
No.
No.
Okay.
No.
because that's the character too.
Yeah, that's the first thing. The character from when he was a kid, I think Bill Hader portrayed it very well. I
Yeah.
thought it was like the same person. Second of all, I think a lot of the parts that I found funny were, for instance, like the use of the CGI and certain effects which were maybe meant to be scary, but maybe they just
Wait, Christian,
just came across as like too over the top.
you're dogging on the effects of the movie then.
Yeah. What do you mean?
So,
But he's saying specifically Bill Hader, like his
Oh,
portrayal.
but I guess my
I see what I'm saying.
my
Yeah,
follow-up question to you though is: Are you saying that the effects were supposed to be done serious and they just had to laugh, or
Oh, I don't know.
or do you think
I
they just fucked up?
Yeah. No.
I don't think they fucked up.
Yeah, I can't know that because I haven't seen the source material.
Gotcha.
So you know what I'm saying? There's no way I could possibly answer that. But short answer is no. Bill Hader, by removing Bill Hader, does not make it a more
serious.
scary movie. or
I
serious.
think. Well, I think it might a little bit. I think a lot of the characters, especially like the character of Eddie, plays off of that energy a lot. So if you did cast it, I mean, if you cast him with a dramatic actor, I don't think it's a worse movie because it's not true to who Richie was in the first one, right? I think one of the things that's been praised for this movie has been the casting. They cast a lot of the adult characters very well in comparison to who the kid characters were and the kid actors and actresses. And I think Bill Hader was pretty perfect for how Richie was portrayed in the first one.
By that Stranger Things kid.
By Finn Wolf,
Yes.
Wolf something.
Yeah.
No. The Stranger Things kid.
His name is Finn
Eleven's
Wolfhard.
boyfriend.
I'm sorry, what is it?
Wolfhard.
And I thought my last name was weird.
Yeah.
Ramgopal.
That's a weird one. Okay, so moving into what happened, the section where Arjuna, the producer, decides through his point of view, he lets us know what he thinks happened. And we call it what happened. So, here we go. I will try and be as quick as possible because he wrote a fuck ton.
It's a long movie. It's 2 hours and 45 minutes.
Yeah, it's almost 3. Yeah.
Here we go. So, This is America. Real quick, right off the bat, Arjuna, you're referring to that very violent opening? Wow, okay.
It
Interesting.
really is.
Think about it.
I am.
The context.
That is amazing. I did not see that, but now that you mention it.
Wow.
Wait, real quick, what happened in the beginning?
Holy shit.
It was a long movie.
The-
He's an
I know,
old man here.
The gay couple get attacked.
Boom. Okay, I'm back. That's
This
it.
is America.
I
There you
remember
go.
now. Yeah.
The library is where home is. Your English is kind of weird in that sentence.
But it's intentional.
The library is where home is. Okay. Avengers assemble. I agree with that.
You know what? I bet if you could do a supercut with that Avengers music,
Yeah, it would work perfectly.
Oh, yeah.
Where he's calling everyone.
Oh my God.
That would be pretty
So
cool.
you're saying Mike is Nick Fury, which is kind of interesting because it's the only African American actor in the cast.
Archie, I'm giving you some homework. You need to recut the movie.
Is anyone now disappointed that Samuel Jackson wasn't cast? as
Jessica Chastain and Scarlett Johansson at different points are both redheads.
There you go.
Yep.
Oh my
Everybody
God.
else is white.
I mean, what's his name is an X-Men, so it's not that far
True.
off.
He's Professor Xavier.
Professor
Oh
Xavier,
my
yeah.
God.
There you go.
Jesus.
Avengers assemble. A bath to remember. That's dark as fuck,
Aw.
Arjuna. What the hell?
It's a dark movie.
Oh, hey, that crazy kid is actually alive. Makes sense. This Chinese food sucks. Trash the place.
Yeah.
But do we know the food was actually bad? They did eat it all.
No, they did, but then they see all the stuff and they trash the place.
And
so.
then from the
So from the perspective of the wait staff, they're probably like, oh,
They didn't
these
like
people
the
are crazy.
food.
How come the police weren't called?
That's a great question.
I would love
That's
to
a
know
great
that someone's
question.
trashing your restaurant. You don't just go in and be like,
Is this because it's a Chinese restaurant
okay?
and there's like white people coming in, so they're too afraid?
Also, it's a Chinese restaurant in Maine.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point.
it's a
Okay.
It's not a buffet.
Mike
wasn't a
is a
buffet.
liar.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, this would be like the first time he's a liar, right? It's the first lie. We'll do it anyway. Underground house. Solo missions. Oh, God. Really, Arjuna? Saggy boobs.
I mean, they were pretty saggy.
Token time.
Oh.
Bar. Stephen King.
Oh man,
Yeah, that was cool.
that was great.
Freak the kid out. Freak the kid out. Which part was it? Oh, where
Go home, run away.
Oh my God.
that was good.
You can't
Grab
come
this
back.
strange child and
Yeah.
shake him.
Shake him and then inevitably
I
get
will
his
say-
face ripped
I
off.
will say our theater was pretty packed and it was very. They reacted to a lot of the stuff,
Yes.
and there's definitely a lot of laughing at that part.
Crazy guy attacks. Save the kid. And fail.
Yeah,
Tomahawk to the head.
Oh,
that was
man.
cool.
Back to the beginning. Spider clown. Mike lied again. More moments for everyone but Mike. Eddie and Pennywise reunite in death.
What? Oh my God.
Impractical kissing.
Oh, I
yeah,
have
yeah,
a
yeah.
fun interjection on that. Everything but Mike, but I don't know if it should wait till later.
No, right now it's
go
fine.
for
This
it.
is
Yeah,
this is the moment to
This
do
is our
it.
jumping
So
off.
I'm
point,
the
so-
only one that's actually read the book.
Yes.
Yeah.
So in the book, Mike does not go with them into the final battle. He is injured by Henry. Henry, I think, breaks his arm and he does some other stuff. So he's in the hospital.
Oh,
So he
interesting.
can't go with them.
In the book?
Yeah.
Interesting.
So that might be why they didn't really have a lot of story for him in that other part.
So they're already giving him more than he had.
Yeah, and that whole Indian artifact thing also was not in the book. They created that. The ritual of Chud was correct,
Right.
but it had nothing to do with an artifact and Indians and all that nonsense.
So where did so let's actually talk about, actually let's jump in because you've read the book.
Yeah.
Compare the book to the movie in terms of like the biggest differences. I've heard there are some really fucked up parts that were in the book that weren't in, ranging from like the kids to some other stuff.
Yeah.
What would you say is like the biggest differences?
The ending. The ending, Bill says something to the effect of, "Oh, I'm glad we're still remembering," but in the book, they all forget.
Again.
They all, that's it. They're
Oh,
slowly
wow.
starting to forget, and Mike and Bill have a talk about, wow, these are the best friendships we'll ever have, but we're not going to remember them and whatnot. Bill's wife has a much bigger role. She actually gets kidnapped by Pennywise. Beverly's abusive husband comes to get her back, and then Pennywise takes over his body, and then
So he has more minions.
Yeah,
than
a lot
just,
more minions,
than
not
just
just
Bowers.
Bowers. Yeah.
Got it.
Patrick Hockstetter had a bit more of a backstory. He wasn't just a kid; he was actually a serial killer who murdered his baby brother in the crib when he was like 7.
Oh, wow.
There's a lot.
Way more interesting.
It's a really phenomenal book
Yeah.
with a lot of story. The ending is very similar. Like there is that whole spider thing, but it goes into this detail about before the universe began, there was a turtle. And
Oh,
the
I heard
turtle
about this, yeah.
created the universe by barfing it up.
Oh, and isn't Pennywise supposed to be scared of turtles?
Yeah, he is scared of the turtle. And then Bill actually, when he's in the deadlights, because Bill gets caught up in those lights, he somehow, I forget exactly, communicates with the turtle. And the turtle's like, "I'm sorry, dude. Like, I didn't mean to do this. I got sick one day and barfed, and there was the universe. And now here comes this alien clown guy, and it's not my fault. It's up to you." And so
Stephen King did a lot of drugs.
yeah.
Wait, I'm sorry, but the book sounds like a sci-fi, not a horror.
The book is definitely more horror aspect.
So sci-fi horror then maybe?
I would say so, but it kind of goes off on that tangent.
Didn't Stephen King said he forgot writing most of this book?
Whoa.
I
Just
don't
like the
remember-
character.
I don't know
I think
about
there
that.
was an interview he did recently, like specifically with the kids and the scene at the end of the first part. Like he said, I don't even remember writing that.
Oh, my God.
Oh boy.
The whole Stan committing suicide, there was no backstory to that. He doesn't write letters to them explaining why he kills himself. He just kills himself.
Oh, wow.
And
I feel like
then-
in this day and age, they had to do something there as opposed to just like, I'm going to commit suicide and be done with it, because I think that's a big focus. Not a focus, but it is something that happens a lot currently with celebrities, with a lot of people, unfortunately. So I think that was probably more of a studio covering our ass situation
and not
than
staying
anything.
too close.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lots of little things were left out that weren't pertinent to the story, and I get it, but it's the one thing they don't mention is all the losers that left Derry are very wealthy. They're very well off. They, Mike even says something like, "You guys all make over $500,000 a year, and I'm here in Derry as a librarian making $32,000 a year," or whatever he says. So it's very interesting. It's fun to see what they changed, but it was also Beverly's father is much more abusive towards her in the books. And then it explains why she then marries an abusive husband. Like, it's a lot. There's
that was
a lot
one question
more.
That
had.
was like one big thing that actually kind of annoyed me, and actually, I'll mark this as my least favorite part, was the fact that was Beverly's character in the sense of marrying an abusive partner after having an abusive father, and I didn't like it because it wasn't explained in the movie as to like what was going on. It just seemed like she was, in the first film, she was a very strong female character where she stood up to her father, she stood up to a fucked up clown, right? Like all this crazy stuff. And then she's like right back there doing something similar. It just didn't make sense to me. So that, to me, was my least favorite part of the film.
But she forgot.
That's my other least favorite part, just forgetting bullshit.
So therefore, she
forgot
all the
her
lessons she
character
learned.
motivation.
She forgot her character arc in the first movie.
Is this also called She Lost the Script?
Oh, no.
Line?
Oh my god.
I guess I'll slap him. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah. Let's move into like least and favorite parts. Does anyone? I obviously threw mine out here. Does anyone have anything they want to jump at real quick?
I think my favorite part would have to be the mullet line by Eddie.
Yeah.
After he's been stabbed in the head and he stabs him through the
Shower curtain.
The shower curtain. Yeah. I liked how that scene was done, and then obviously the line is like just the perfect timing, and then just kind of inching out. It was the funniest part, and it was my favorite part.
I'd have to say my favorite part is is it Eddie, the asthmatic?
Yes.
Yeah. When Eddie is dealing with the zombie in like the basement of the pharmacy, and he's like strangling the zombie, and then the zombie throws up on him, and Angel of the plays. That was great. I was like, they Deadpooled this up. Like I just got a very Deadpool vibe, and that was like, and that goes back to like why I thought this movie was hilarious, and that was like the pinnacle, like right there, like these like strange, like the music choice.
Yeah.
You know, I just thought it was great. I loved it. That was my favorite part.
Gosh, I don't know if I had like a favorite part per se. There was a lot of just me comparing what was in the book to what was in the movie. Unfortunately, I didn't like the whole scene with Bill trying to save the kid in the carnival. That does not happen in the books. Just FYI, I understand why it was in there, but I was kind of like,
I didn't like it. I didn't like it either because I feel like it doesn't
do anything.
It doesn't do much really
Yeah.
for the story.
So that was definitely something I didn't like.
It felt like more of a plot convenience,
Uh-huh.
and then kind of the themes or whatever you're supposed to like. Bill's supposed to get out of it doesn't really. It just feels like bad writing.
Oh, I know what else I didn't like, and I felt that didn't necessarily need it, was all of them going off on their own. It was so much story that I was just like, oh, come on, you guys.
It felt like it felt like they went to the writers of Stranger Things season 2.
Oh,
and they were like, "Hey, got any stupid ideas for us?"
let's split the team up.
Avengers disassemble.
Seriously,
my
that's
God.
just I did not like that.
Yeah.
That was
Is
just
that
so
how it goes in the
stupid.
book?
No.
They
They
don't.
don't
Not
split
that
it
I
up.
remember, but also the ritual of chewed has nothing to do with them collecting a
Tokens.
token and then putting it in there. So that also.
Can we? What are the tokens? Because we were talking about this earlier. Like, do we actually get everyone's token
Yeah.
properly?
Yeah, everyone's got
Well,
a
everyone
token, yeah.
except Mike's gets explained with one line. He's like, "You guys remember this?"
Yeah,
and they're
no.
like, "Yeah, that was the rock that was thrown at you when we all came together." It's
No,
like,
but if
yeah.
you've seen the first movie, you know what he's referring to.
No, I know, but like you don't see it
Oh.
in this movie. You know, like they all
okay.
go and get their things. Like
Gotcha.
even what's his name? Because he has his token in his wallet.
Stan. Oh,
No,
Bill.
Ben,
Ben.
right? Like so he doesn't go on an adventure, right? Like
Yeah.
the others do, but Mike's like you don't even see Mike retrieve the stone. He just like has it at the end. He's
Yeah.
like, "Guys, I had it the whole time."
I just want to point out in your discussion right there, I just realized how truly generic all the main characters' names are. Mike, Bill, Ben.
Bev.
Stanley.
We're just
Stanley, Eddie.
missing like a Michael and a Steve. And
Well, we have a
What
Michael.
was Mike?
We have Mike.
oh yeah. Obviously, duh. So we have a Mike. Never mind.
Yep,
Yeah.
Beverly, Bill, Richie, Mike, Ben, Eddie, and Stan.
We need a Steve and a Tom, and then we'd be complete.
I mean, the author's name's Steven, so.
Yeah.
So boom, there you go. Why would he write a book with his own name in it?
All writing is autobiographical.
He would rather just have a cameo and become the new Stan Lee of cameos.
That's what's gonna happen.
My favorite part, I'm gonna say, is probably the casting. I would say just overall casting that they did. This is probably one of the only movies I can think of where they do a giant time jump and they have to actually recast, where it actually makes sense. Where it's like I can actually see those characters from the first one, and I think it's a number it's both casting and then also just general directing as well. The director did a phenomenal job of like making sure that those kids, those traits that we see there, we can pick up in this older 27 year later jump or whatever. So
Oh, there was another thing I forgot. So when they're battling the spider, Eddie actually gets his arm completely bit off.
fun.
And that's how he
Oh.
dies through blood loss of that. This
Not-
one, he just got thrown into a rock. I was like, oh.
Nice.
Oh,
Well, he got
they should've
stabbed.
done
Did
the
he get?
arm.
No, I thought he got stabbed.
Yeah, he got stabbed with the spider
And then-
leg, and then he got thrown. Yeah.
So fun fact about the casting. So the casting of the adult characters wasn't announced till after the movie, but
Right.
they had done it. I think they did it almost at the same time with the kids, and they're actually going to reveal in a post-credit scene for It Chapter 1, Jessica Chastain as Beverly as like a post-credit scene.
They
But that-
were.
Yeah, and they pulled it pretty late.
Yeah, because they don't want to copy that annoying company and.
I mean, a
Disney
lot of movies do after credit scenes.
It's annoying. Just stop. I want to go to use the bathroom. I want to go home.
Yeah, but
I want to have a life.
The first movie that did it wasn't Disney. It was Fox for X-Men 3, The Last Stand, revealing that Charles Xavier was alive.
That was the first one?
That was the first superhero one, which then it
That was before
popular.
Iron Man?
That was before Iron Man. It's 07. 06.
06? I don't remember anything beyond 07. Conspiracy theory I have. Another discussion.
Okay.
What?
What? What? No, nothing. Okay. So now you have no favorite parts, or
I liked when she was drowning in the blood, but I just like the backstory behind that. No.
I'm sorry. Let's just take that out of context real quick.
I like that. I like the drawing in the blood. All right.
I thought that was very well done. You know, it was flashing back to all the bullying that she had and hiding out in the bathroom, and then just the fact that this movie has used the most blood out of any horror movie any movie ever, and most of it is in that scene.
Is it real? Like that's a statistical?
It holds the record.
Yeah.
And she was saying, it was interesting, they were talking about it at Comic-Con, that that blood, whatever they make the fake blood with sugar or whatever, you cannot heat it, because when you heat it, it curdles and it starts to smell like vomit. So they have to keep it cold. But she's dunked in this blood, so every time they had to reshoot it or set up cameras in different ways, she's sitting there freezing, you know, because she can't get warm to dry off the blood, and the blood is kept cold. So every time they film that, she's in ice cold blood, basically.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Probably makes it a lot easier to act.
I'm
that
sorry.
scene.
I'm sorry. We have people like Heath Ledger, Joaquin Phoenix playing this character of Joker, and like they went crazy and blah blah blah. That to me would make a person more psychotic and crazy. Like,
I think so.
Sitting freezing and you're covered in fake blood, even though you know it's fake blood, it's got to still do something
and
to
she's
your
doused
psyche.
in that thing, like head to toe. She was under it. Yeah.
That just helps the acting ability. If you're psychologically, being damaged, you're going to act like you're psychologically damaged.
Christian, you should be taking notes. Don't you have a character
You're
you
right.
have to be playing soon?
You're absolutely right.
Yes. Oh, I did like the come home part.
That was
I did
cool.
like that.
That was cool too.
That reveal and with the balloons. I don't know how they filmed that, to be honest, unless that's
man,
CGI.
yeah.
It's
With the
probably
balloons
CG.
just coming out from under the bridge.
That was actually probably one of the creepier parts of the movie, to be
Yeah.
honest. It was suspenseful. There was nothing too jumpy, but psychologically, I was like, can you imagine being Mike and like sitting there and seeing that on the side of the bridge?
All written in blood. And
yeah.
it's just like,
I was like,
ah.
that's well done. Yeah.
It was paint.
Thank you. Thank you for ruining that.
Speaking of Mike, actually, and before I forget this point, I do have a question regarding the memory loss specifically.
Yes.
So everyone that left Derry loses their memory. Mike remembers.
Right.
So
'Cause
he
he stayed
remembers
there.
because he stayed
He
there.
stays.
And he remembers these relationships with these people. He clearly loves them enough that he keeps some stupid rock, right, for X amount of years. Why is it he's not in more contact or like continuous contact with these people? Because it's very clear, like when he starts calling up the Avengers to bring them back home, it's very clear they haven't spoken in a long, long time. Why do we think he was just kind of, is it explained in the book where he's just like, peace, I'm not going to talk to you? Like, that seems weird, especially in an age where this movie is supposed to take place in 2016 or something.
2016 is when the
Every 27 years.
yeah.
Because
So,
maybe-
and social media is abundant.
yeah.
Like,
The only thing I can think of is that Mike. First of all, Mike goes on a spiritual journey, right? According to the movie.
With the Indians.
With the Indians, yes. He goes off into the woods. So he's not like he's sitting in Derry doing nothing. He's been busy, just like all the other characters.
right.
And, I'm just guessing, but in his mind, he knows they're getting back together at this 27-year mark, so he's just like waiting for that maybe.
He
He, like,
doesn't know.
knows.
He's hopeful. He's explained as the watchkeeper. Like, he's just watching. And then when these murders start happening with the kids again, and he's,
He's
been
all over it.
He's researching the history of Derry. He's like, oh my gosh, this pattern is repeating. They go into so much more detail about things that happened every 27 years. There was a explosion at I forget, it was like a mining facility during an Easter egg hunt, and all these children, all these families were destroyed, but it was actually Pennywise. There was a gang back in the 20s that shot everybody up and killed everybody, and then that was Pennywise. Like, it goes back and back and back, explains it so much in the book. So he's kind of like their historian.
What's interesting to me is from the first to the second movie, like Ben is the one in the first one that drives the whole thing of like looking up the info of Pennywise
Yeah.
and being the most interested. And then it just feels like
Yeah.
they swapped him out for Mike in the second one. I don't know if that's how it goes in the book.
I don't remember.
It just felt weird to me. Like I would have thought like, oh, Ben was the one that stayed in the library and like had more interest in Pennywise.
No, he did crunches. He got
Yeah.
hot.
Yeah,
There's
exactly.
a great story about how that happened in the book, to be honest. It's really,
Really?
interesting. Yeah. Like, he got even fatter after Gary. No, it even says it in the book. Like, he got even fatter, and he was in PE in high school, and the bullies were yelling at him and calling him fatty or whatever, and so the coach shooed them away, and he looks at him, and Ben's, like, naked crying in the shower or whatever, and the coach goes over, and it says, grabs his titty and squeezes it. Like, that's one of the sentences I remember from the book.
Oh my god.
And says, son, you're, fat and I'm not going to coddle you and whatever. And so then to get back at the coach, he then goes on this extreme workout routine. It doesn't go into it, but his mother is a fat woman.
Interesting.
And she's a single mom, so to make herself feel like she's being a good mother, she would always feed him. And if he was eating the food, then she felt she was being a good mom. So that's
Makes
one of the
sense.
reasons he got fat. And so then he just went on this extreme diet, and then he goes out and he beats every single person on that coach's track team, every single one of them. And he's like, hey, coach, what do you think now? And the coach slugs him. In the books. And it's a great story of how he got his
Interesting.
revenge. But yeah.
Oh, that would have been great for the movie.
Just wait.
That-
Just wait for like sci-fi to pick it
Deleted
up and
scenes.
do a
Yeah.
mini-series or something. I don't know.
all these side stories. They're
So
great.
moving on here. I still need your least favorite part, Christian, and your least favorite part, Juna.
I'm gonna say my least favorite part.
Great,
and
thank
it's
you.
not really. It's not really a part. It's more like an aspect of the movie. I wish they would have filmed the kids' scenes in the second movie at the same time that they filmed them in the first movie, because I noticed at least
That they had gotten older.
they were older and it's supposed to be the same summer, and that it just took me out a little bit. And by a little bit, a lot. Every time I saw it,
couldn't tell, honestly. I actually thought they were all done at the same time.
Some
They
of them you
weren't.
could, like Eddie, you could tell he had gotten.
yeah, different
older.
slightly the hairstyles are a little bit different on Bill as a kid.
The kid who played Ben had
Um,
lost weight.
Really?
Yeah, you could definitely tell.
Also, the kid.
I mean, I just saw the first one 3 weeks ago.
Gotcha.
So, like, I
Yeah.
definitely noticed. I noticed that, I think, a lot more than
And
other
the-
people would have.
And the little kid and the little kid who plays Eddie, well, we saw him in Shazam,
Yeah,
right? And
that's
he's
him.
closer to Shazam
Yeah.
Eddie than he is to it Chapter
Eddie,
1
right.
Eddie.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
So
but
this
it's
is,
fine.
so then you would say this is not a movie you should binge back to back.
Yeah,
I
probably
think you
not.
should.
I mean, you
no,
could.
I think that's probably best.
Yeah.
So you don't lose
Well,
all the
I mean, that's just
details.
one little aspect. They didn't ruin the enjoyment for me. It just pulled me out a
It
little
was,
bit.
it was
every time.
sarcasm. It was a joke.
Oh well, I'm sorry. They can't tell sarcasm over the
Yes, they can.
the audio.
I'm sarcastic all the time.
So for me, it's got to be the pacing of the movie. I mean, it's a lot.
Yeah.
It was a 2 hour and 45-minute movie, and it felt long. There were definitely parts that dragged.
All the token collecting.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, definitely
Yeah.
some of those were pretty long. And I'm just like, all right, and I don't know. After coming out of the movie, I felt like, was there enough content in there? Was enough that happened to justify it being 2 hours and 45 minutes? Right? I don't know. I don't think so. Like, if you go to a movie like Avengers Endgame, which was over 3 hours, that movie to me didn't feel like 3 hours because there's so much that happened.
Mm-hmm.
In this one, it just feels like there's some things that happen, but it doesn't feel like it's that much of it.
I think we have to stop comparing long movies to Avengers Endgame. There's a difference. Avengers Endgame has 10 years of content.
I agree.
And 30
Behind
plus
it.
characters.
Like
No, I
we
agree.
can't compare it like to an Endgame.
I'm comparing it though in terms of like they're similar lengths. Right?
How about There Will Be Blood? That's a 2.5 hour movie.
That
What
feels,
about
that's a movie that
Titanic?
feels long.
Titanic is
Titanic
also.
is 3 hours.
Sure,
movie.
yeah.
but
Compare it to those movies.
this still feels longer than those to me.
I think. Yeah,
I
I
will-
would disagree.
I will say
Yeah.
Titanic felt long for me
Yeah.
because we watched it with our grandfather and it was awkward as fuck.
Oh.
The naked scenes? Come on, guys. That's just weird.
Why am I sitting here with my grandpa?
Yeah. that was-
Okay.
Terrible choice.
Pacing, that makes sense.
I will
I would
agree
say
with you on
pacing.
that. Yeah.
Do we have any theories about this movie? I personally don't because it's kind of, for the most part, cut and dry here. It's psycho clown, sad kids, murder.
I
And-
will say at one point during the movie, I had a theory developing where most of the first movie could have been explained with like drugs in the water, like hallucinogens or something. And I thought maybe that we're going to explain that in this movie, or they're going to have that be like his dangling thread to. But they didn't really go that. That didn't
Like a science, like science. Could
like you could have
explain
explained it, yeah. But it was just a moment, and the rest of the movie had nothing to do with anything like that. So it went away pretty quick. So.
I mean, they do say in it chapter 2, right, that Pennywise came from the stars, right? It was
he's
a
an
comet
alien
from
He's
an
he's a force.
interdimensional being is what they say.
That came down
That
and
came
then
down.
discovered this is his his feeding ground is how it's referred. So
Is it ever explained why it's every 27 years, or is it just
that's
like
his
some
nap time.
So he just
Like
naps
he
for
literally
27
eats
years.
and eats until, or actually, excuse me, it's a she. Believe it or not, it is a she.
Wow.
It is a she, and she eats and eats until she's sleepy, and then she naps. And her nap is roughly 27 years. And then you actually find out in the book that she's laid all of these eggs. And so there's a whole section where I think I don't know if it's Ben or one of the other characters who's actually going in and stomping and killing each of her eggs. And she feels it, and she's running away, and then she feels that they're killing her kids. And so she turns around to fight, and that's when she becomes the spider.
Oh, wow.
But
That's
it's
dark.
such a good book, you guys.
Yeah.
Like,
Man, this movie didn't capture all of the book.
no,
Clearly.
not at
No.
all.
Yeah.
So much is left out. But I understand it's a movie. It's not like Peter Jackson was Lord of the Rings. You don't have this monumental budget where you can put everything in. And he didn't even put everything in,
Yeah.
in
No,
the book.
no,
he
so.
left a lot out.
hopefully Amazon will.
Yeah?
I doubt it.
They should. If it's a series, you could put everything in. Every little detail. Every side conversation.
They announced their first casting.
Oh, really?
Will Poulter, the guy from Bandersnatch,
Yeah.
Wow.
is going to be in the show.
As Boromir.
No, I don't think so.
No,
What other character could he play? He's
Frodo.
crazy.
Well,
No.
I mean, it's not. You know, the
It's
show's
not-
covering
yeah.
more
Everything.
than just Lord
Yeah.
of the Rings.
Yeah.
Doing
Right?
Similarian or something.
Similarian,
Just
yeah,
everything. So he'll be an elf.
Yeah. Could be.
He'll be Tolkien.
That means potentially they could have Hugo Weaving back, too.
Oh, man. They should have Boromir back. Sean Bean.
Don't kill Sean Bean.
Does anyone have any rants that they want to get off their chest? Oh, man. Anything that
Ravi,
annoyed them?
how about this?
Go ahead.
I'm going to throw it to you.
Oh, thank you.
CGI.
CGI was shit.
You usually rant about this.
I'm not going
though.
to rant about it because
Wow.
I'm not going to rant about it because a good friend of ours said, who actually saw the movie with us, Michael Learman.
Yes.
He said the only reason you pay attention to bad CGI is because the CGI just didn't hit that level of being good CGI. And what he meant by that is, do you ever compliment good CGI? Do you ever sit there
You
and
don't
say
notice it.
you don't notice it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not that it's necessarily bad CGI. It's just CGI that you could tell, right? Because let's be honest, I can't go and come home on a I guess I could actually. Could go and get some pig's blood and paint that. But I couldn't go and do that in CGI is what I'm trying to say. So I don't really have I'm getting off my
disappointed.
I'm getting off my CGI. high
Ravi
horse.
here has a for everyone who doesn't know, Ravi usually has a segment almost in every movie where he'll either comment to full on rant on the CGI of a movie.
It started with our very second episode when we did Black Panther.
Yeah.
That CGI was fucking shit, okay?
What did you just say? Let's roll it back.
Yeah, let's roll it back.
But there's a difference.
Play that clip again.
Yeah. Ugh.
Difference. It's different.
I'm just like, you're getting old or you're maturing, and I don't like it.
Thank you.
I don't necessarily have a rant, but I have something that I was like, oh, that's interesting, where they made Eddie and, God, I forgot his name, Eddie and
Richie?
gay. And, you
That
know,
wasn't in the
had
books?
that whole thing. Not that I was aware of, but I grant you, I was a very innocent young
Well,
child.
was Eddie gay? Well, Richie was gay.
Richie was gay,
But was Eddie?
I don't know.
I don't
But
think
they also had
I
that
don't think-
kind of,
I think
tease.
what they showed was Richie loved Eddie.
yeah.
I mean, Eddie loved Richie, but I don't know if Richie.
No, Richie loved Eddie. Richie was Bill Hader.
Right. Richie loved Eddie, but I don't know if they showed it the other way.
Yeah, and I never got that from the book. I'm gonna have to go back and read it. But
Right.
that was something I was.
But
I'm not complaining,
Right.
but it was like, oh,
I had heard that the Richie being gay, like Bill Hader playing Richie as gay, was something that was not in the book and was added for the movie.
which is fine.
And it was subtle. Like,
yeah.
it wasn't like it was overt in any way.
I thought that was actually an interesting part because Pennywise used that fear.
Right. Right,
that fear of coming out.
Right. He plays on that fear, so it makes sense for the movie.
Yeah,
And
which
it
was cool.
And it makes sense for
Well,
it makes sense for the setting too. Like Maine, Derry, Maine's supposed to be this backwards ass,
town.
hick town, right? Which
I mean, they beat up the
the very
gay
beginning of
couple
the
right in
movie,
beginning.
right.
exactly. So I think it was like a good choice because it playing on that fear and then having him hiding this part of himself. I think really helped kind of establish the setting as well.
Oh, I do have a better rant. Yes, there's not enough Pennywise.
Yes.
I
I
agree with that.
Loved the scene of him with the little girl.
Vicky.
Like that.
Hello, Vicky.
That was so really well done.
He was like hiding in the corner. You can barely see him.
And he's like,
I have no friends.
Yeah, like that was, and I would have liked to have seen maybe one other attempt, maybe in the first movie, but I was like, I didn't get enough Pennywise.
That was almost my least favorite part. What I was gonna say is that like Pennywise was severely underutilized.
he's the best character. He's the best part of the
It's
movie.
the best cast.
Yeah.
Like he did a phenomenal job.
Yeah.
And
Like-
they also didn't use him in the marketing. Like I was so sad. He hardly did interviews. He wasn't in any of the pictures.
So I had read that was like a personal. He didn't-
This role might have fucked him up.
Not that it fucked him up. I think it was very, and that's the thing that annoys me is because you see a lot of these like clickbait articles everywhere. It's like, Bill
I see.
Skarsgård is no longer the same. It's not that he's no longer the same. It's a very intensive role, and he is of the mindset of like method acting.
So you have to
Like he was
unwind.
always in character. Like he would want to be on set. He wanted to be in makeup all the fucking time.
So you're saying he just wanted, even when he was like lying in bed, going for a walk,
He was
Yes.
doing a
Swimming.
Daniel Day-Lewis.
he
is
was
what you're
trying
saying.
to eat children. That's what you're telling me.
not that it was necessarily trying to eat
That's
children.
what it takes to method act, man.
I think what it is. I think what it is too is like they shot this movie how long ago now?
A while ago.
About
while
a
ago.
year
Yeah.
and a half.
And
years.
then at this point, like if you were this character for like 6 months, 8 months, however long, and then you have to go on press tour, do you really want to go and do? And
No.
this is your second time,
I'm
right?
being facetious.
I know.
But he
Yeah.
did the first press tour, which
Right.
I would have loved to hear more about his process. Like,
Yeah.
you're playing this evil clown again, and now you're battling adults. I would have loved to hear more of his story, but they didn't do that.
I still think like I agree with him, kind of like backing out of it and just taking a step back because like Bill Hader and all of them, James
McAvoy.
McAvoy, like this is their first time. Let the focus be on them, and that way he can go chill and do something else because it's like this is the second time he's playing for the most part. It's not like in the 27 years, right, of the movie timeline, from It 1 to It 2. It's not like Pennywise has actually changed, right? Pennywise still wants one thing.
No, I disagree. He
Little
has changed
children.
because he's finally had somebody fight
him.
back.
That's
somebody
true.
scare him for the first time, and now he wants revenge. So think about how you feel when you've been wronged. You're like, kind of a thing. So I think that's Pennywise's new motivation. That's why he's like, come home, come back. I want to get my
Round
chance
two.
to get you,
Yeah.
So
Interesting.
That would have been cool.
So wait, I gotta ask, Joker or Pennywise?
as what, the baddest villain?
Yeah, I guess like who
Pennywise. It's like
who's
a-
your favorite, or who's a
Pennywise.
better character? Let's go with that.
I
Let's
would
go
say
with better
Joker's
character.
a better character, more complex.
I don't know. We haven't read the books,
That's true.
so.
But in terms
I'll
of in terms of what we've seen on screen, I would say Joker is a more complex character, which makes it more
is he though?
interesting.
All he
I
really
would-
wants
I-
is anarchy. I would actually disagree.
I would argue though, like we don't have enough information of Pennywise that we do with the Joker. Like for the three of us,
Sure.
Joker as a character has been part of our lives since we were tiny, right? Since
Yeah.
Batman the animated series,
Sure.
we've understood and seen a Joker and this idea of chaos. For you, Arjun, you didn't know of Pennywise until
3 weeks ago.
No, I mean, I had obviously, I'd
Since
obviously
yesterday?
heard of the movie 2 years ago when it came out.
right, but that's still a lot less
Sure.
information.
We haven't read the books either. I don't know.
And there's only three iterations of Pennywise. There's the book, there's the 1980s
Tim Curry.
and then there's the Bill Skarsgård.
I guess to me, he's definitely a very scary character, but it's he just wants to eat people, or she wants to eat people, and
Yeah.
that's it doesn't seem
too complicated.
too complicated to me. Well, I think the Joker is just a more interesting and fascinating character because he's this agent of chaos, but I feel like there's a lot more whys with while with it you're just like, okay, she's an alien and
You just take it at face
eats
value.
things and
Yeah.
cool, like definitely scary, definitely a scarier character because it's This sometimes it's a
Supernatural?
clown, sometimes it's a spider, sometimes it's Paul Bunyan. You know,
Yeah.
Wait, what?
Change them to the statue,
It turns
remember?
into the statue of Paul Bunyan with Richie.
Gotcha.
Which is great.
Any hot takes? Anything that's gonna annoy our viewers, or at the very least make them think?
I don't know if it's a hot take, but to me, this was more comedy than scary movie. So if you're going to see this movie as a scary movie, I think you'd be better
You're
off.
pleasantly surprised.
Well, it depends. It depends on what you want. If you're going to be scared, I think you'll be disappointed. If you're going to just be entertained and have a good time, I think you'll have a great time. Because some people, I have friends like who they love scary movies, and I don't know if they'll love this movie because it's not the scariest movie I've ever seen. It almost wasn't scary at all, but I was still highly entertained by it. So it might be depending on what the reason you're going to see it for. You might be either very disappointed or very entertained.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Juna, I'm kind of curious. Like, to Christian's point, I do agree with it. The movie definitely was more lighthearted, I would say, than the first one. And I do think that's because we've seen the first one, or everyone saw the first one first.
That's true as well.
And you kind of, the scare of Pennywise is kind of taken aback because you're anticipating a little bit.
Yeah.
Was that like good for you? Because you're not a fan of scary movies. Did you go into this movie like on the edge of your seat, like, all right, can't cover my face and eyes because Ravi will make fun of me? Like,
I mean, I definitely did at a couple points.
oh, I know. There was about 5 points actually.
Yeah, wow, it wasn't that many, but
I counted. Actually.
you didn't.
I did. I was watching you more than I was watching the
well,
movie.
what I think is interesting is, I wonder if that intent of like the first one, because I think most people would say the first one is a scarier movie than the second one.
Yes.
I don't think that's a stretch, and I wonder if it's just the intention of the first movie is from the perspective of kids, the second movie is from the perspective of adults
Who've already beat him.
who've already faced this horror, right? So I wonder if that thematically goes into it, and why the second one is more lighthearted and a little funnier and not as scary. That was a thought I had after I saw the movie. I just thought that maybe it was intentional, but who knows? But it was an easier watch than I anticipated.
I'm a big music person, so I'm not. I like horror and suspense movies, but when I can hear in the music, I'm like, okay, something's gonna come. There's that, violins. Okay, I kind of prep myself.
Especially when they cut the music, as soon as like you hear it and then it's just gone, the jump is about.
Well,
to
like
happen.
when what's his name is hiding in the locker, and you see the stupid Nukas on the block poster behind him. I'm like, something's gonna happen with that damn poster, and I don't want to look.
Oh yeah.
And I could tell by the music when it happened because I wasn't looking.
Yeah, I looked down at that point. I'm just like.
But I mean, I think that's where, kind of going off on a tangent, that's where A Quiet Place was masterful, because there was no music, there was nothing.
Oh, interesting.
And you
I
were
haven't seen
just,
this.
it's so good, because you're just like, it's got to be quiet, These monsters are going to come if you make any sound, so there's no sound.
So you don't know when anything is going to happen. That's
you
amazing.
have to have your eyes glued to the screen to follow the story.
Oh my God.
Because they're signing to talk. Yeah, it's incredible. But I would say,
Should definitely check that one out.
All right, you sold us.
I'm shocked you haven't seen it. It's really well done.
Yeah.
There's just so much content to watch now.
Yes. Game of Thrones. And,
That's not content. That's a bunch
That was an abomination.
yes.
So one thing, Arjuna, on our little spreadsheet thingy here, the Rotten Tomatoes score actually surprises me.
Yeah, it was low.
What is it?
It's 63%.
Oh, that's surprising?
Yeah,
I
actually.
thought- that
Did it
sounds
top the
about
box
right.
office this past weekend? I honestly didn't check. I assumed it did.
Yeah, it got 90 million domestically.
But I bet you it'll drop by this week, unfortunately.
Probably. I feel like horror movies don't necessarily sustain very often. I mean, just for comparison, the first one made 700 million total at the box office. On Rotten Tomatoes, it has an 86%. The first one.
What's like the biggest takeaways or like the biggest comments or things that they're talking about in terms of giving it such a lower score from the first one?
So they always do a critics consensus on Rotten Tomatoes,
Yep.
and the critics consensus reads, "It Chapter 2 proves bigger doesn't always mean scarier for horror sequels, but a fine cast and faithful approach to the source material keeps this follow-up afloat."
So basically, it wasn't scary for them.
I would say Bill and Richie sell it. If they weren't in there, you probably would not care nearly as much.
Boom.
that casting right there, and those two play off of each other so
So well.
well.
Yeah.
I don't know if they've ever worked together, but they had that chemistry,
Right.
and you were just like, oh, I want to hear more about what these guys are goofing off or whatever.
And this is going to be weird to say, like, as well cast as it was, I was disappointed by some of the performances of James McAvoy and Jessica Chastain. Like, I've seen them in much better roles and more, and I don't know if that came down to the script, but their characters felt just flat at some point.
I think it came down to the direction.
Yeah, and I
There
think
were a
that
couple
too.
points when Beverly, like, I forget, she sees Eddie with the thing, and she
Oh,
screams, and I'm
4
like,
times.
Yeah.
She, like,
that
screams.
yeah,
I was like,
it
"Ah."
drew me out because I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't think the character would do that.
No.
Yeah, no.
Not from what we saw as a child.
You're right.
Right.
Absolutely.
She was just more, even when Bev was little and the blood was coming out of the bathroom sink and she was just terrified. She didn't scream.
Right.
Right.
She was just kind of, and then all of a sudden the adult woman is screaming. I'm like,
So,
nah.
would you guys say your favorite? So, the first one. Who are your favorite? Your 2 favorite characters in it? Like the first one.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Definitely Bill.
I would say Bill, and then also
Georgie. I like Georgie.
Georgie, the little
The
kid.
little, no, but that little boy did a great job.
Oh, yeah, no,
Think
I
of
mean-
how he.
But
you know,
as a character though, God,
I would say the
kill
2
him.
most interesting characters was Bill and Beverly.
Yeah, I would
first
say
one,
Beverly in
yeah.
the first
one, right?
But in the second one, I would agree that
It's
Yeah.
Richie and Eddie.
Richie and Eddie.
Because I thought
Because Richie-
the two most annoying characters in the first one
Sure.
We're Richie
were
and
Rich and Eddie, which is so great. That's why I think it was so perfectly cast.
Yeah.
Because they were so annoying, and I thought, I hated Finn, I hate the stranger. But in hindsight, I'm like, it's
He grew
amazing.
up to be a
Wait,
comedian.
you hate the actor?
No, I don't hate the actor. I hated the character.
I mean, he wasn't great in season 3 of
Stranger
Stranger
Things? Dude,
Yeah.
season 3 is better than season 2, though.
No,
agree.
it is, but but I think I said this. If you go back and listen to our Stranger Things season 3 podcast,
Yeah.
I said the most annoying thing to me were some of the performances of the child
That's
actors.
true,
'cause
that's true,
they're
yeah.
getting that awkward phase and like they're overacting and
Yeah.
it's just
It's
like
the
bad.
Prisoner of Azkaban, Harry Potter movie
Yeah,
phase. They're right in
yeah.
that tween.
at least
phase.
Daniel Radcliffe can kind of act now.
Yeah. He's a good actor.
Jesus.
I think.
I just think the negative of all of this was the direction for a lot of the characters.
Yeah,
It could have been the screenplay as well, but combined,
and it's
an
funny.
actor's only going to do what a director
Well,
tells him.
and that's what's funny. It's the same director, like the same
Yeah.
guy did both movies. It wasn't like it changed or anything.
Thank goodness. Could
So-
you imagine if it had changed?
if J.J. Abrams directed it.
God.
Star Wars here.
Lens flare. Pennywise with
Walks
lens,
out lens
flare.
Pennywise dies in the first 30 minutes.
It's like, it's like Pennywise comes out. Hello, hold on, lens flare. Hold on.
Wait, is that a J.J. Abrams special? That
No,
he
that's
dies?
that's a Ryan no, just saying going from JJ to Ryan
Johnson. We're going to
You
kill
know,
our
kill-
main
kill-
character with no...
Pennywise dies.
Oh my God.
His backstory isn't important. Doesn't matter. We want to change expectations.
Oh,
The kids
man.
never get back together.
Let's be honest. That was a studio decision, and you know it.
What, Ryan Johnson and
No,
Snoke and
absolutely. Anyone who thinks otherwise is on crack.
I'm
That was
sorry.
totally-
Ryan has gone on Twitter many times and defended that.
Yeah.
So...
And he has to. He has to.
It's in his
But that was
contract.
definitely. I'm telling. I almost can feel it that like the studio's like, yeah, he can die in this one because now they can create all these comics and games and books around this character.
I heard it was a toy thing because the Snoke toys weren't selling well.
I actually believe that. That actually sounds legit.
Nobody wanted to raisin.
wait. What can we do? Bring back Palpatine.
Everyone will buy those toys.
They want those
Oh
toys.
my God, that's actually makes
Hey,
a lot of
hey,
sense.
They
actually-
are selling his costume
it
at
actually-
Galaxy's Edge.
Bad Taco's idea here. We should do a sketch where it's like, what villain should we bring back? And you just have Palpatine and Darth Jar Jar on the board, and it's just like debating like which
Pros
one.
and cons.
Pros and cons. to
They
which
do.
one to
They
bring
do
back.
like test groups with people.
Oh,
Which would
they
you
do 'em.
prefer to see?
Yeah.
Do you want this like absolute batshit theory to be confirmed, or do you just want to go with old reliable here?
Boring but reliable. Yeah,
Warm
okay.
but reliable.
All right,
There you
all
go.
They tend to do that.
I think it's that time, kids.
Wait,
All right.
is game time?
It's game time.
You're going to say hello in that voice again?
Hello.
All right, I'll start it off. Ravi, was it chapter 2 good?
No.
Oh, so shocker. Well, I knew you were gonna say that.
You did?
Yeah,
Why? How did you know?
because I knew right after the movie. You
After
were
the
like,
movie, you were super
you were like,
negative.
no, it wasn't that good.
But it didn't. It wasn't like when I saw
You
Rogue
have
One.
to do it in
I
a
didn't
voice.
cry.
Wait. Wait. Hello, Georgie. No, it wasn't that good. I have no friend. I have no friend.
Hi, Georgie.
Where's Christopher Robin?
Krishna, was It Chapter 2 good?
Yes, it was.
You-
It was a fun movie, and I liked it. And I'm going to watch it again.
Good.
Natalie, was It Chapter 2 good?
Yes, for what it was.
Boom.
Then you asked.
And then,
Arjuna.
Okay, Arjuna, was it chapter 2 good?
I'm gonna have to say no.
Aw.
And
Whoa!
the reason I have to say no is
this our
because
first-
We just did a podcast.
He was just too scared the whole time.
Yeah, you're
No,
a wimp.
Yeah.
no, it's because I wasn't scared enough. Because
Oh.
this was a horror movie, and I don't think it was a well-crafted movie with its pacing. It didn't hit on being a horror movie. Yes, I did find it funny, but I think I laughed at more parts that I shouldn't have laughed at.
Wait, if it had been marketed as a suspense movie, would you have liked it?
No, because I do think there's some real issues with the movie,
Okay.
like the pacing and some of the acting.
Okay, that's
Pacing
fair.
for sure was.
I don't think we've ever had a split decision.
We have multiple times.
Wait, two on two?
2 and 2 tie.
We've had 2-1. I mean, split decisions and right down the middle.
Yep, we have for Detective Pikachu.
Oh, well, Brett fucked that up.
Brett and I said no. Ravi and you said yes.
Shocking.
I think that's the only other one.
What was Brett's thing? www.theinternet.com.
Oh, wait. No, his thing during that podcast was, it's for children, or it's a movie
this is
for
a
children.
children's movie.
Yeah, there we go. Oh, Brett.
It's our other podcast.
And
Once again on
the
Pete
question
Detective
is, would
Pikachu.
you watch this movie again?
This is a first for me because usually when I say no, I wouldn't watch again. I would still watch it again. I just don't think it's good.
I would. There's a rumor that they're going to do a supercut, both movies together, and I would watch that.
That'd be kind of cool.
Would that be, 5 hours?
No,
Yeah.
it'd probably be like a 3 hour. They'd cut out a lot
I
of
think
like
they
the
cut out some
I'm
stuff.
sure they killed the
Oh.
token bullshit. I'm sure they'd get
That'd
rid
be
of that or
great.
speed that up.
Yeah.
You have to
a
keep
lot
some of
of
it.
a lot of the development pieces they would get rid of. Thank God.
Actually, a
And
supercut would be
I
really
fucking
interesting.
hate
We'll have to find out
developments.
next Halloween,
Right.
when Warner's like, we need a Halloween movie. It the supercut.
There it
No, another
is.
Purge movie? Darn. Really love those movies.
Never seen them.
Krishna, Natalie, would you guys watch the movie again?
I would.
I would wait a while, but yes.
There we go.
There we go. That's going to do it for the Was It Good podcast. Natalie, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Do you
That
have a
was fun.
plug? Is there somewhere where people on the internet can find you?
They can find me on Instagram. My name is Leia Aurora, like Princess Leia, then Princess Aurora, but it's mostly Star Wars. Sorry.
Well, we did talk about Star Wars in this podcast,
We did.
which happens about in 80% of our podcasts.
100%.
Even the
No.
sports ones now. Thank you for listening. Like I said, this was the Was It Good podcast. You can find us on Twitter at Was It Good, on Instagram at Was It Good BTM, on Twitch at Was It Good. We're around for podcasts whenever we feel it's appropriate. So, don't add us.
Wow.
Also,
Oh.
hello.